So,
Whew.
this is a bonus episode.
You're welcome.
We already did one this week, but we forgot to talk about something really important. Go ahead. You have to cough? Are you okay?
No, I started laughing because I was going to make a joke. I started laughing at the joke in my head before I said it.
What? The non-existent joke?
Yeah, it's
It
okay.
had not been born yet. Did you think of something funny to say?
No, because I was laughing.
Okay. So,
I do that often. I'll laugh at myself.
what are we here to talk about?
You wanted me to talk about the event that I went to last
Yes.
weekend in Brooklyn. So Oprah is doing a wellness tour at a selection of cities.
Use your
Did I forget how to talk today?
Yeah.
And it was basically my dream day. So there was about the one that I went to in Brooklyn. There were about 15,000 of us in Barclays Center. Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
And we were all dancing and meditating and doing breath work. Cute.
Which we
eye
talked
roll.
about
Yeah.
this week.
Together, and she held like workshops on setting goals, intention setting, how to find and create balance in your life. I
Wow.
felt so great about myself because I was like, I do these things that you're talking about. And she had Rachel Hollis come and speak. Daybreaker was there doing dance. Julianne Hough was there. She did breathwork dancing with us. And then, of course, you know, the Queen, Michelle Obama, came. Yeah. And shared some pearls of wisdom with us. And her talk was for about an hour. And then Oprah spoke, you know, in between and all of that. And there were just some things that I took away from that experience that I thought would be really helpful to share with people, especially if you were not there. You don't either
Yeah, I
get
wasn't
to
there.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry for you. And should we unpack that? Are you resentful?
No, it's fine. I watched through your stories on social
Yeah.
media.
But my mom actually turned to me at one point. She was like, "Oh my gosh, you could be one of these speakers because they sound just like you."
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, "Fucking right." Anyway,
And how did that make you feel?
it made me feel fucking amazing
That's awesome.
because it wasn't a criticism for once.
I am dead. Dead.
Anyway, so
Okay, so
what do you want me to talk about?
I don't know. Like, I feel like this is exactly what you told me when I asked you about it, but like, that doesn't give me any like real details or like about what actually happened. What did you learn? Like,
Okay, so one of the things that I have a huge problem with is, or, you know, a problem dealing with, I guess is really what it is not taking what other people say or how they treat me incredibly personally, and how people act around me or towards me or like not even remotely towards me, as a reflection of myself. And even, you know, and then the other difficulty in that is knowing so as much as I do about the human condition, about human behavior, about myself, but then still having these very real human emotions and reactions come up and then coping with them accordingly. So sometimes I have to hear the same things over and over again for it to click in a different way, which is
Right.
why this was so cool for me, because as much as I knew what everyone was talking about, and I teach that daily to other people constantly, it was really helpful to hear it in different ways. And one of the things that Rachel Hollis was talking about was something that is in line with this, in the sense of like, if there's another person, right? If there's another person that is not doing the things that you're doing, and so she prefaced it as, you know, how many of you in this room are doing something that like someone else has questioned, or trying to, you know, start something that another person has, you know, told you isn't going to work, or has criticized in some way. And of course I raised my hand to like all of it. And because I constantly get that. I constantly get the, how are you going to do that? Are you sure you can do that? Do you think you're doing too much? And it's coming from people who have no idea what the fuck they're talking about, or have like never done any of the things that I'm trying to do. And luckily I have people in my life that actually do know and do have experience, so I pull from them. But she, you know, was asking that question. She said, hey, if you are not like walking this walk with me, and that's a lot of what Michelle Obama was talking about. I'll get to that. Like, if you are not walking this walk with me, if you are not eating this kale with me, if you are not like joining in this work with me, and she had said a bunch of other things, she said, then your opinion has no space here. And I needed to hear that because I give so much space to opinions that I don't need to. And more so have to focus on like how I'm feeling and what my intuition is, and speak up and ask for help, because that's one of my biggest problems is asking for help, because I think that I can do it all because I know it all. But like I've said before,
that must make things a little more complicated
for like my life, or yeah, it does.
Yeah,
because here we go, fucking coughing again. It is harder because I forget sometimes that I am allowed to be a human being. And well, first of all, that I am a human being, right?
Not an alien.
Yeah. Who's going to feel and who's going to, not feel good about herself sometimes, and who's going to revert back to old behaviors, and who's, going to make mistakes. And as much as I understand that concept, when that happens or those things happen, I'm very quick to beat myself up for it, and not understand maybe why I keep making a dumbass decision over and over again, because I should know better, and I do know better, and I teach this for a living, and I fucking talked about this like 17 times this week with clients, but then I keep doing it, and there are some very smart people in my life, one across from me, who keeps telling me, hey, like, I think one of the things that you need to do is embrace the fact that you are allowed to be a human being, because you are one, and you're allowed to make mistakes. And clearly, like, this is happening, so you learn from it, rather than using it as a way to further beat yourself up.
Right. Yeah, that's no help.
No help.
It doesn't do anything.
No. And so when she said that, in the way that she said it, it really like set off like this fire in me of like, yeah, you know what? You're fucking right. Like, don't say anything about like the way that I eat plant-based if you are not doing that and haven't learned anything from it, right? Like, don't give me shit on how I should change the way that I run my very successful practice when you have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. But at the same time, where I steer myself wrong is I'll build up that wall of not
open to hearing things.
Exactly. And it really wasn't until like probably the last 6 months that I've become, okay, let's be serious, like 3 months, maybe less, that I've become more open to other people's ideas, because I don't know better. I don't know it all. Knowing has never gotten me anywhere. It's doing. But at the same token, where I can utilize what she was talking about to my benefit is not placing so much emphasis on the opinions of other people when they are not people who have a life that I want, who are not doing the things that I want to be doing. They're not, existing in a higher level of well-being. So why am I concerned with that?
Right.
So that was a nice little cup of tea that she shared with us. Yeah.
Sip that. What else?
So Michelle Obama talked a lot about walking our own walk. She was telling a story about how she would go on these hikes, these really long, intricate hikes, and she would go in groups of people, and the whole time she would be judging herself based on what everyone else was doing. Like the girl in front of her, that she was faster than her and getting up, the hill quicker and in a different way. But then still also judging herself in relation to the people behind her.
I can relate.
Yeah, we're so fucked up. Yeah. And so she's, the entire time defeating the entire purpose of why she's on this hike, right? Like, she is stuck in her own shit, allowing her ego to totally take over, and questioning herself, questioning her abilities, questioning the simple fact that like she's walking in a different way than other people are, because isn't that like the reason why we're all different? It's like because of that.
Yeah.
And instead, like, defeating the purpose of trying to, be active and be mindful and be present, because we can't be present when we're stuck in our own heads. That's why breath work exists. I'm just going to throw that plug in there one more time. And she was talking about how she learned on these hikes the exact issue that she was having and how to work through that. And I have to walk my own walk, because if I do what the person in front of me is doing, I'm not going to get to the space that I want to by doing that. Like, I will end up in a completely different space if I try to do what the person in front of me is doing, because we are two completely different
Right.
people. There is no textbook to how to, get through life. And I hear that a lot. I hear from people constantly, and I used to say this growing up too. Like, I feel like I was like the only one who didn't get the manual in life. Which, by the way, like, I will
so relate.
yeah, I will totally write that when I'm retired. Don't
Sometimes
fucking
I
steal
feel
my
still
idea.
that way. I can still feel that way.
But there is no manual.
I know. That's like, I feel that way when I forget that, and that I do actually have a lot of tools to like get through life.
You know what's so fascinating is we use that sentiment as a way to separate ourselves from other people. But what's so funny is that we all feel exactly the same way, and in
Right.
fact are not separate from one another, but we keep ourselves separate from one another
Crazy.
instead of, embracing one another and learning from one another that we are all in fact the same.
Yeah.
And feel a lot of the same things and experience a lot of the same things. And instead of, deriving love and hope and connection from that, we instead keep ourselves separate because we're so afraid of being vulnerable.
Yeah.
Just went on a tangent, but
It's fine. This is all so useful.
and that's actually why in my practice, because I would run groups a lot when I worked in treatment facilities and in agencies, in my private practice, I started to run groups with clients who I felt where I didn't feel I knew, because they would all say the same things. We're going through the same stuff. And it's been a way for a lot of the people I work with to come to an understanding that, wow, I'm not the only person who feels this way or thinks this. And in fact, am not alone.
Right.
Which has been an instrumental part of, those particular individuals' healing in not feeling like they're the only one going through what they're going through. She also talked a lot about partnership and relationships, which was cool because, she is married to Barack Obama. And, she was very open about how, like, they, like everybody else, like, has their own set of issues. But she was saying that they went to couples counseling, and she went and would, like, just vent, right, about, like, all the shit that she didn't like about him and, like, all the shit that, like, he was doing. It was so cool to listen to how the former president and first lady, go through the same shit that we all do, which I hope sheds light on the simple fact of what I was just saying earlier, if we are all the same.
Yep.
And she was saying how she went to couples counseling originally because she just wanted to tell him about all of the things that he was doing wrong, which never helps anybody do that. And she realized, like, that may have helped her get it off her chest, but it didn't, in fact, actually change anything. And it became this, understanding that there was nothing that he was going to be able to do differently to help her feel better within her own self and feel more secure in the relationship. Like, she had to work on building that security within herself to ever feel secure in that relationship, that she had to work on building her own self-confidence to ever feel confident in the relationship, like work on her own even confidence in her ability to speak up, to ever speak up in the relationship.
Right.
And I think you know where I'm getting with it. And so she was sharing that, which is a lot of the work that I've done within myself too, in everything starts and ends with us.
Yep.
Like, if I don't like what you're doing, that disturbance resides within me.
Yep.
You are not powerful enough to get me to feel anything. Like, I feel that, I react to that because of myself. Because
having that awareness, it's like the best thing and the worst thing.
I know. Well, full circle, right? Like, the worst
Yeah.
thing, because I'm sitting here like, I know that this is happening, but why is it happening?
Yeah.
Like, I thought I was fucking cured, and I'm not, and never will be, like we talked about earlier in our earlier episode. And so, I mean, that's the first step, right? And, like, recognizing, hey, this is what the disturbance is, but then working through that with yourself.
Right.
And it almost always just comes down to fear. Like, fear that you're not going to change, because if you don't change, then how am I going to feel? And I don't trust myself to be able to handle how I might feel if that thing might happens. So I try to control it now in the present, even though it, like, might never actually happen.
Right.
And a lot of, what she was talking about, and I, relay to clients that I have come to understand over the years as a practicing clinician, is the root of depression is truly a lack of relationship with self. And anxiety is truly a lack of trust in self. And I have to pay very close attention to when I do get through things and when I do feel things and then am able to move through that I didn't die, right? From feeling sad. Like my whole world did not crumble because I got rejected. Like that anger did not like, totally overtake me and look at these accomplishments and these wins, so to speak. I don't want to be such, so dichotomous between win versus lose because I don't see things as losing, but no, everything is gray for sure. But looking at that of like, okay, I actually see this as empowering that all of this resides within myself and the change has to happen within myself rather than it being so upsetting or distressing or debilitating.
Right.
But I laugh with clients all the time by saying, like, the one thing that you are in control of, you are choosing not to be in control of, and so instead trying to control everything outside of self because you don't trust yourself, right? And I have this experience too. We all do. And looking at that as being empowering to say like, okay, actually I do have control over the one thing or the things right within from my, head to my toes that can actually evoke this change.
Right.
Versus it being like, oh man, like I'm not in control.
Yeah.
And can't get what I want. A couple of things she also said about partnership was you need to know why you're with your partner. And she said that something she learned too, which I'm sure this is different for other people, but she had to pick somebody who had the same values as her. Especially what she said when it came to parenting. So she was like, if you want to become a parent, make sure you marry somebody who has the same values as you do as a parent, because so many people get married when they don't go over that, and then you both parent in a different way, and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I think like there's a bunch of things in that arena that should be discussed before like marriage is even on the table. And that's painful. Like that's not easy to like set your feelings aside and be like, hey, like we have to have this really like realistic conversation about the future, what you think it should look like for yourself, what you want it to look like for us. Like, that's like uncomfortable, but like it's better to get it out of the way now before you're married, having kids, and then you realize like, oh,
who did I marry?
What
am I doing?
Yeah. It's heavy.
I was going to say, so in relation to that, is also just being as open as possible with the person, but also not expecting them to, through the changes that they may or may not make, then that is going to lead to your happiness in the relationship. Like that's just a bunch of bullshit. Let me tell you right now. So, she was saying like, it's so funny. I'm like talking to them like I know them. Barack, right? So he like may or may not change what she was hoping that he would change, but eventually it didn't matter because she had changed that within herself.
Got it.
And, not being incredibly petty over these like really trivial things.
Or having like hard-lined like beliefs of how like your partner should act or behave, because like your idea of that can change.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it makes it a lot easier to deal with when you have an open mind like that.
Yeah. And I, one of the saddest things I ever came to learn was like, I'm not the decider of how other people should or should not behave. I'm not. And again, like everyone's on their own journey. Like we have to let people be who they are. And hey, like not everyone's for everyone either. So if you meet somebody and it doesn't work, or you haven't, tried to see if it could even work, or, had the open conversations to, see what your values are or how you may or may not match, then you can leave.
Yeah. And that takes like true honesty like, with yourself and your partner. Like to be able to like sit there and be like, well, I love this person, but like, are they for me? Or,
we're not meant for everyone. If we were,
we would have been with the first person that we ever dated.
Yeah. Which, no fucking thank you. So that was really cool that she opened up about that. And what I took from that too is like in her, this is going to go into like the next thing I want to talk about, like in her being vulnerable and open with 15,000 of us, and then of course like this is publicized now on the internet, on the interwebs. We then can gain an understanding of ourselves, and being open and being vulnerable with another person, with other people, actually lends to creating this space where like healing can occur and love can occur and connection can occur. But instead what we do is we all close ourselves off from being vulnerable because we see it as weak. We see it as, if I am that way, if I'm open, then there's more of a chance of me being rejected. Like, if I'm open with these people, then what if they don't like what they're seeing?
Yeah.
And
you might not like me.
Yeah.
That's like what my story is
Mm-hmm.
in my head. I have to fight that. And it's like, or if I'm open, like, I'm available to get hurt. Like, and who likes that?
But I gotta tell you, like, whether we're vulnerable or not, right? Like, we still get hurt.
Yeah.
We still get hurt. We still feel rejected. These things still happen.
Right.
But we have more of a possibility of experiencing true love and connection with another person by being open and vulnerable. I can literally feel my walls coming up around people in an effort to protect myself. But I've, gotten to the point and done enough work to know that doesn't actually serve me. It's just my body and my brain just reacting the way that it always did since I was a little kid. So I have to counteract that through my breath and and through reframing and like telling myself like, no, you are safe and okay, even though it doesn't, you don't feel like you are. So that was really cool because I took from her really sharing her experiences with us to say like, no, like these things happen with everybody. And she also, similarly to me, has derived purpose from sharing her experience with other people.
Right.
And that's really been like the crux of her existence.
It's amazing.
There was something else I wanted to questions, comments, concerns.
You had brought something up to me, like the really big
thing at the end.
Yeah.
So Michelle Obama came out for an hour and she did the interview with Oprah, and by this point we'd have been there for 7 hours. It was like an 8-hour event. It was a work day with Oprah.
It's amazing.
And then after that, Oprah was talking for a while and she ended the show, and it was probably like another 30 or 45 minutes. It was incredible. And she shared this story that really, really helped me, that I know will help a lot of other people. I've shared it with some people. She was sharing about, her upbringing, and not to go too deep into it, but for those that may not know, like Oprah was the product of a one-night stand. Her parents were not in love. They were not together. Her mom did not want her, and so she was shipped off to her grandparents when she was born. Her mom was really, really young. Her dad was significantly older than her mom, and she grew up with her grandmother and didn't really have a relationship with either of them. But when she became famous and successful, she actually retired both of them and, had them, live, very comfortable lives, but, didn't really have, any type of, love or connection there on a deeper level.
Mm-hmm.
So when her mom was passing away about 1.5 years ago, she was talking about how she really, really struggled with that, grappling with like, am I going to regret anything when she passes because we haven't had this connection? Should I be doing more? Is there something I should be saying? And so she did like exactly what I would do, right? Like she went and like handled all of the details and like got the best doctors and like handled all of the stuff like that she perceived that she could be in control of, because she was feeling so out of control of the fact that her mother, this is my observation, she didn't say this, like of because I have to do that, her her mother passing, she's not in control of that, and then she's not in control of her own emotional experience, right? And she's like talking to people about and like researching essentially like what she should be saying to her mother before her mother passes. And like nothing's coming up. So she's praying about it, and she's praying about it, and she's praying about it. And long story short, right before her mother passed, she went to her mom, and in so many words, and this was the part that really stuck with me, she said, you were not the mother that I needed you to be, but you were the mother that God needed you to be in order for me to be me. Wow. And that like hit through me like a wave, because there are so many people that I have had in my life or have in my life that I have wondered why they couldn't be the person that I needed them to be, why they couldn't show up for me in the way that I needed them to, or have shown up for them. And going back to, our first full-length episode, like changing myself and betraying myself over and over again to fit into what I thought you would believe would be good enough in order to therefore then love me.
Right.
But in fact, that wasn't it. Like that was
Yeah.
never going to be it. That those people were who they were and what I choose to believe, like my higher power needed them to be in order for me to be myself.
Yeah.
Like if I didn't have those experiences growing up or now as an adult, even currently, I wouldn't have done any of the work I've done or am doing to be able to really step into my authentic self. And so what she was getting at was, if you had raised me, first of all, if you hadn't even had me, right? If you had this one night stand and had, done whatever her mother may have decided to do to not have her, well, she wouldn't be here.
Right.
Right. And then if she did and she raised her, like, who knows what would have happened? Like, everything worked out exactly the way that it did in her life. And then when she was at the point where she put in a ton of freaking work and effort to then continue to step into that, her authentic self, she would not be who she is. And that was so powerful to hear her say. She was sobbing when she was telling the story.
It's just emotional hearing it,
yeah. And that helped me go home and do a lot of internal forgiveness for people that I thought were supposed to show up for me in a certain way that couldn't because, they were doing the best they could.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, whether we choose to believe that or not, that's the fact of it.
They were or are doing the best that they could with the knowledge and experience they have in that moment, at this time. And I'm, again, not the decider of how other people should or should not behave.
That's so heavy.
Yeah.
That's like next level acceptance over people when you can realize that they're just doing their best. And, if things, like she said, like if these struggles or these things that have happened to us never happened, like who knows where we would be or who we would be. Mm-hmm. It's powerful stuff. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to cover?
So like I said, we were doing workshops on like goals and setting of intentions. And it all came back down to ourselves, like fully acting in love with ourselves, acting in acceptance of ourselves, like what you were saying, like fully accepting other people. We have to do that for ourselves too. And truly believing that like we can achieve these things, because so much of what I see and I can share with how like it manifests in myself too, where people will say like, I want to be better in this way, or I want to do this in this way, or I want to achieve like this goal, or I want to open this business or whatever. And we stop ourselves because we don't believe that we can. We don't believe, again, going back to some of what we've talked about, like we are not deserving of that. We are not good enough for that. And there are so many people I know that have talked to me about these things that they want to do, and then they don't end up ever doing them. And that's like the opposite of my experience. Like anything I've ever wanted to do, I do it. And I do it at the same fucking time.
So aggressive.
So aggressive. It's like so disturbing. And it served me well, but it gets to the point where like when I get really overwhelmed, I find myself shutting down.
Right.
Like I'm like, oh, well, I'm not going to do anything today because this is just too overwhelming. And I don't end up following through with that. I do the opposite. I will just handle it. But I also have worked to believe that I can have good things.
Right.
Like earlier in my life, I didn't believe that. So I would continue to do things that were in line with me not feeling good enough and not feeling deserving of good.
Yeah. Basically sabotaging before you even get started.
Yeah. And so when I do those things today, I'm really quick to beat myself up for it, because I'm like, no, you have like done this work to love yourself and like be this, know, higher whatever level of being bullshit.
High vibration.
Yeah. Fucking whatever. And I can't believe like you're doing this again, or you're even getting to this space. But what I consistently also teach people about from that experience that I have is, but that's part of being a human being.
Yep.
Like no matter how much work you've ever done on yourself, no matter how much you love yourself, like I think I'm fucking cool, right? But I still make dumb decisions or, beat myself up. And that's just a part of what my brain likes to do to revert me back to what I always used to know. And so it's okay that happens.
Yeah.
I just then have to, okay, like I gotta just keep doing what I'm doing to go back.
One foot at a time.
Yeah. So
it's been great.
This is so great.
So much good knowledge. I wish I'm going to have, is that episode available?
Yeah, so if you go on her Oprah's Instagram, she has, and I'm sure it's like
It's like all over,
you just
right?
like go on the interwebs.
Yeah, just Google it.
She I
have
think
to go
she
watch it.
posted a bunch of the different interviews, but definitely Michelle Obama's. I saw it up on Instagram.
Yeah.
And it was just really cool to hear her talking, just like another human being. Like again, we are quite literally all the same.
Yeah.
But remember, knowledge is not power. You can know a lot and still be a complete flaming asshole.
Yep. For
And
sure.
we don't want to be that today. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, and we'll see you on the next episode.
And remember, you are not unlovable until someone loves you. Remember that. You are and always have been lovable since you got here.
Thanks so much for tuning in.
We love you.